Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Regional journalists were very recently treated to a workshop in Trinidad and Tobago on the investigation of corruption in the Caribbean. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 2nd November 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. A workshop for journalists in the region was recently conducted in Trinidad and Tobago on the subject of investigating corruption in the Caribbean, organized by the Media Institute of the Caribbean, supported by USAID in collaboration with the International Center for Journalists. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline reports.
Well, this workshop was attended by several journalists from around the Caribbean. Several journalists were chosen by MIC, the Media Institute of the Caribbean, to be part of this training workshop. And the idea, of course, is to train journalists on investigative reporting on corruption in the Caribbean. It was a 3-day workshop, started on Thursday, October 27th, ran it into Saturday, October 29th. Various topics were covered by various trainers and facilitators, persons who are experienced journalists in some instances, and specialists in various fields, such as anti-money laundering and finance. We looked at various topics. On the first day, for example, we looked at understanding money laundering, and this was conducted by Miss Michelle Martin. She is compliance anti-money laundering expert, and also she's a certified anti-money laundering and financial crimes prevention professional, and has done several workshops right around the world. We've also looked at terrorism financing and human trafficking, which was also conducted by Ms. Martin, how to spot corruption, cybercrime, and the journalists had an opportunity to discuss story ideas that would look at the issue of corruption. We also had several sessions on Friday and Saturday where we looked at freedom of information, how to write freedom of information requests. I know in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have freedom of information legislation that was passed in 2018, but has not been fully functional, and which, of course, the government is looking at implementing. But we did get some insights from Ms. Dion Jackson-Miller, a journalist and attorney from Jamaica, who is specialized in that area. We also looked at digital security for journalists, because journalists also are in the business of should be in the business of protecting their content, protecting their research and information, because that can also be under threat to cyber attacks. And so digital security was one of the things that we learned here at the workshop. And there were several other topics: ethical and legal considerations in telling a story, how to verify and organize a story, budgeting for your story, presentation of findings from assignments, and how to spot corruption, and several other areas, which I won't get into for this report. What we will do, though, however, we'll share you just a bit of the opening ceremony, which took place on Thursday, where the president of the Media Institute of the Caribbean, Kiran Maharaj, addressed briefly the journalists at the workshop.
We could not have done this project, our first in person after almost 3 years, without the support of USAID. The rep could not be here this morning, but USAID and MIC started a discussion 4 years ago. When I checked the dates on the email, it was 4 years ago. And so they have been doing a program in Latin America called ProSafe, and it is administered by ICFG. I want to thank ICFG for ensuring that we got the program off the ground and that we get to where we want to go. We will be working with them over the next 10 months. So part of this program is, while you all have the training over this 3-day period, there is going to be a follow-up where you will submit your story ideas and storyboards to MIC. And we are going to select some of them to move forward. You will be entitled to a small grant, and a mentor will be assigned to you. and those stories will go up on the CIJN.org website.
It is the expectation that when this workshop ends, that journalists would go back to their respective countries and jurisdictions and report on stories of corruption, coming up with a project that will be funded through the ICFJ, the International Center for Journalists, and of course supported by USAID. And these stories will be published on the Caribbean Investigative Journalism Network website, CIJN, and that story, of course, can be made available to various media houses across the Caribbean, and they can also publish that, of course, giving credit to CIJN. So, coming to you from Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago for SKN Newsline, I'm Andre Huey.
In other news, Attorney at Law Tamika Clark, detained on Friday by Special Organized Crime Unit SOCU in Guyana, has indicated that she will be taking legal proceedings. HGP's Travis Chase has some details.
Because she advised her client to remain silent while in police custody, ranks of the Special Organized Crime Unit SOCU arrested Attorney-at-Law Tamika Clark on Friday morning. The attorney said she was at SOCU to provide legal representation for a client who is listed as a suspect by SOCU in relation to computer-related fraud.
He told an officer whose name I don't know at this time, arrest me for obstruction. Then Romana came, told me, follow the officer upstairs, and told my client, go in that room and give a statement. I followed the officer upstairs. They placed me to have a seat in one of the chairs in the room upstairs. The officer who arrested me is a male officer, took my phone from me. And then one of the officers, another officer there said, get the female rank from the gate because she has to be the one to arrest her. The female rank came up. They started to prepare statements, started to prepare a record in a book. They came, they asked me my name. I tried to leave. I got up and I was walking out. Sergeant Singh ran and blocked the door.
The well-known attorney said the officers wasted no time in placing her in a detention room, then took away her phone, all because she had advised her client. The attorney said SOCU had a prepared statement for her client to sign, and when she advised her client not to sign the statement, the officers became enraged.
So when I arrived, my client came out and we spoke. My client told me while he was there, they had a statement there already and was asking him to read it and sign it. So I spoke with my client, and my client indicated that he indicated to the officer who was there, Mr. Jude, he's following his attorney's advice, and he will not be signing any statement.
It has now become clearer that SOCU seemed to have planned the arrest of the lawyer if her client had followed her advice and reserved the right to remain silent.
Romana told me, you're going to come back, you and your client are going to come back on Thursday at 1 p.m. And if your client does not give a statement on Thursday at 1 p.m., I will arrest you. I said, you are arresting me for advising my client to remain silent. He said, counsel, all I can advise you is that counsel will need counsel.
Attorney-at-Law Nigel Hughes, who went down to SOCU after learning about the arrest of Attorney Clark, described the situation as worrisome and a threat to all attorneys.
The rule of law and the enforcement of law, which the judiciary are tasked with to protect the citizen from the might and power of the state, is under threat for this reason.
In condemning the arrest of Attorney Clark, the Bar Association of Guyana said that the actions of the Guyana Police Force is disturbing, perverse, unlawful, oppressive, and wholly unacceptable. The Bar Association also called for disciplinary action, including termination of any officer or officers who were aware of the situation and allowed this type of conduct. The opposition, APNUFC, said that the government must take full responsibility for the actions of the Guyana Police Force, since it is the government who has created the environment for the violation of the rights of citizens and the rule of law. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
A green light in the High Court on Friday for former Police Commissioner of Trinidad and Tobago, Gary Griffith. He's been granted leave to file a claim for judicial review. That action is against the state, and it's over the controversial firearm users license audit report. And now the Prime Minister and former Attorney General are among those being called to appear before the court. Anselm Gibbs of TV6 News reports.
In coming weeks, long-standing members of the public sector could see policy adjustment for workers. President of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, O'Neill Grant, is now calling for the revision of benefits. He says plans are underway to provide maternity, paternity, and adoption leave for workers.
We have the draft policy, and we are now finalizing our feedback to the Ministry of Finance, and we expect that in the next few weeks, hopefully sometime in November or so, those policy adjustments will be issued, and we expect that by December 1, those persons who have been pregnant with expectation and pregnant otherwise will have something to look forward to at the point when they are going to be delivering.
He reaffirms no public sector worker will be worse off with the policy change expected. The president says the JCSA is looking to improve work conditions and wages for civil servants.
We are looking at matters of flexible work arrangements to include work from home. We are looking at unemployment insurance, and of course, Mr. Baker, we are looking about the issue of the reform of pensions. Even though we have the policy in place, we want to ensure that we continue to do something where that is concerned.
Grant says the union is also working assiduously to address the concerns of public health inspectors across Jamaica. He was speaking recently at the Jamaica Association of Public Health Inspectors at the Coral Gardens Ocean Spring Hotel. Nicola Brown, CVM Live.
Over in Jamaica, policy adjustments are expected by December 1st for members of the public sector. President of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, O'Neill Grant, is calling for the revision of benefits to enhance salaries and working conditions. More in the CVM News report.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and 5 of his ministers have a court date coming up. On Friday, Justice Devendra Rampersad ordered that the 6 cabinet members appear before the High Court on November 9th. According to the Express newspaper, this comes as Justice Rampersad has granted leave to former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith to file a claim for judicial review against the state. It's over the firearm users license audit report. The other ministers who are required to be present before the High Court are former AG, now local government minister Faris Al-Rawi, Finance Minister Colm Imbert, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines, Energy Minister Stuart Young, and Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez. Their court appearance will be as members of the National Security Council. According to the Express, Dr. Rowley will also appear as Prime Minister and Hines as National Security Minister. Griffith's attorneys now have up to 14 days to file the claim. The issues at center here are the audit into the process the TTPS used to grant FULs while Griffith was Commissioner and the report by Justice Stanley John. Griffith is arguing it was all tainted with bias towards him. As Griffith claims, when the investigation was launched, he was already out of office and that he was not given any opportunity to see or respond to the findings of the report. The Express is also reporting that as part of the action, Griffith is also seeking an injunction to restrain the Prime Minister from having the report laid in Parliament.
Roberts is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbartshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.